Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance, and enjoy the show.
It picked up a little bit when there were photos, of the cows coming in and all that, but he never really recovered from all those antics.
So 40,000, you would say, was the peak of the membership?
Yeah.
And what was he charging at that time?
I think around then it was about $50.
For the year?
For a year, for standard membership. There were other membership types of memberships, but that was the standard one. There was lifetime memberships were $1,000, and there were mini memberships too, I think, where you made payments and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think people were paying $50 a year for a t-shirt and a membership card or whatever it was.
So, and when you say that it became more militant and started to shift, was that around the time that he started to support Trump? Or
no,
was it
because he really didn't support Trump until later, until 2018 or so. The more militant stuff was Bundy Ranch. That was huge.
Okay.
Completely off mission for anything he ever said he wanted to do. Ferguson, that was huge, and really bizarre. He had several other smaller missions in there. Strangely, though, he did start to pick up membership again when they sort of switched to disaster relief. Again, people like that more mild, during hurricanes. And this is not Stewart's doing. This is other members who, there were decent guys in there that did food drives, and they collected water, and they had trucks full of food and supplies and chainsaws for removing debris and stuff. And so, and a lot of these guys a huge number of these guys were really suffering veterans with a lot of PTSD. And, I think Stewart would target people like that,
Yeah.
And but they did some of that. And as long as Stewart wasn't too involved, those operations went okay. It seemed like the more involved he became, the more he'd get in front of a camera, and the more he would try to take control and bottleneck everything through himself, slow everything down. They didn't run so well, and also funneling the money to himself. But those were things that people liked, and that did, if he had stayed in that that area, it probably would have slowly built up membership again. But he just wanted to take things in that crazier direction, and he did not take part in Malheur, because it was, he knew that was a mistake. He was really nervous about Ammon Bundy taking part in that wildlife refuge thing. That was a bad choice. Did not take part in Charlottesville, though some people showed up in Oath Keeper shirts at that event, and that was really a huge nail in the coffin of Oath Keepers, because that he had really tried really hard to never have any association with racist, to the point where he would cancel events even if money was put down, if it turned out someone associated with white supremacy was going to speak. Because that's a huge part of, you can't recruit from the military. It's not because he's a good guy. It's because he was trying to further his goal.
I see.
And
it was all optics for him. It wasn't about.
Yeah. And he did take offense at racism, particularly, toward Latinos. But but for the most part, it was, he wants to recruit to military, and he wants to keep his PayPal up. So he was very adamant about always making sure that if there were rumors someone was a racist, he would put guys just on monitoring them online and following their different usernames online. Are they posting on these racist sites? Is there a mention of Oath Keepers on Stormfront? And so he would root them out as much as possible. But he wasn't diligent enough. And when Charlottesville happened and those guys showed up in Oath Keeper shirts, that was it. I mean, PayPal canceled them.
Wow.
It really, the damage was done. And then I think he just kind of gave up at that point. And I noticed multiple times he appeared at events with known racists, like Brittany Pettibone. He was sharing a stage with her after we separated, and it was just shocking, as was the side that they took in the George Floyd BLM protests. I know it sounds silly to be shocked by that, but I really was, because supporting, BLM, during the George Floyd situation, it seemed like such an obvious, if you claim that your group is supposed to support police and making the right decisions, and, what other situation was your group intended for? This was literally the entire point of Oath Keepers, and they came on the opposite side of what their, what they claim their intentions were. So it was just, even though we'd been years separated at that point, and it was just still shocking. I should have known better, but I still didn't.
There's actually a man, there's an article I came across, and it was from years ago, and I don't even know how I found it, but I Googled something and it popped up, and it was this man who used to be involved with the Oath Keepers. He was a member. Can't remember his name right now, but I saved.
Sam Andrews.
What was that?
Sam Andrews.
It might be. I'm not sure. But he was saying how he wanted the Oath Keepers to go and stand up and arm BLM protesters because they were all afraid to carry weapons, because when police see Black people with weapons, they get shot. And he was urging Stewart and others that, this is what we need to do. We need to go and march with them and prove that, no matter what color your skin is in this country, you should be able to, have your Second Amendment rights upheld and not fear that the government is going to come in and harm you. And he said that he had major pushback.
Yes, I considered that the last interesting thing that Oath Keepers almost did. That was, I had been kind of trying, I think of it as like trying to put a pin back in a grenade with Stewart, for years, trying to keep him calm, trying to keep him on a certain track, because it was starting to become obvious where he was taking things, even though he claimed otherwise. And then 2012, I had a pretty bad personal situation. I had a little girl, and she was stillborn, and and it really mentally, I kind of became a rag doll for a while there, and then I also witnessed Stewart's behavior, where it was clear the only thing he was interested in was me just being over it as soon as possible, and all, to be his wife, giving him attention in every possible way as soon as possible, and that's all he cared about. And caught him in a weird email chain where he was speaking with some people he was having an affair with, and they were just talking about how this situation could be good for them. This is a good situation because they can use this to sort of befriend me and try to exploit that later into some sort of sexual relationship, which I made it clear I was never interested in anything like that. It's just no judgment to people who are into group situations like that. It's just not me, and I have no interest
you had just gone through a horrific experience. Oh my God.
And this was a matter of fact, back and forth conversation between Stewart and these people who I thought were my friends. And